just put Hazel down, so I don't know how long I've got to film this, so let's see how we go. This is going to be a review, wrap up, whatever you want to call it, of the Shatter Me series. I finished this a couple days ago and I read it back to back to back. So if the books get a little bit messed up for me and I can't tell the difference between the books, that is why, but we'll deal with it. It is an 11-book series altogether with 6 full books and 5 short novellas. So it doesn't take that long to read because it's written in YA. It is first-person perspective, it shifts perspective, it's fast-paced, and you just seem to get through it super quick. I read all 11 books in like just a bit over a week, maybe 10 days. So it was so quick and easy to read. I was at first put off by the length of the series, but don't let that put you off. Just start it and you'll probably love it. And I will say, let yourself get through the first book into probably up to like Ignite Me. And if you're not hooked by then, I don't know what to tell you, but the first one was probably one of my least favorite books of the series, and it just kept getting better for me. So keep at it and it'll probably get better for you too, hopefully. This is a, oh my goodness, what's the word? Like the Hunger Games and Divergent and all that, where the government's really bad. It's not a dystopian. It's a dystopian novel series where the government has taken over the world and is faking that the world is all falling apart. And they've taken over saying, we can save the world, give us all the control. So they've taken all the control over and they're trying to rule the world. They've split the world up into, I think it's like 500 and something different sectors. They've got leaders in each one. All the civilians are pretty much just like factory workers now. The sky is like falling down, the birds don't exist, like things are just going to heck. So the government's like, we can fix it all, let us control everything. Spoiler, plot twist, at the end of the series, you find out that the world is fine. The government has just made everyone think it's going to heck by having an illusion going. So that's fun and fresh. Anyway, we got off track. So overall, I rated this series a 4-star series. I really loved it. I think it being YA took on it slightly just because the characters were all so young, and it like made me feel a little bit strange when the main girl character, who's 17, was like ruling a country, and it was like, is she though? Like, is she really? But anyways, if I just tried to forget about that part, then I loved it. So it is what it is. Alright, so going into the first book, I rated this one a 4 stars, and if I think it back over comparing it to the rest of the series, I'd probably drop it to like 3.75, but I still really liked it. So 4 stars. This first one follows Juliet, who's the main girl character. She has a superpower where if she touches anyone, then they die. So she's been locked up in a mental asylum, and then it follows her journey of how she gets out, who she meets. She ends up being trapped by the re-establishment. Her and this other guy escape. And so towards the end of the book, they've escaped the re-establishment and they're finding a way to survive in this world where they're like fugitives. So that's that one. Then we move on to the first novella of the series. This one is from Warner's perspective. Now, Warner is the whole series' romantic interest, but going off the first book, he's like cast as the devil, low-key. Like, he's meant to be like, I keep saying like, well, he's portrayed as like evil, the villain, the capturer of Juliet. But going into the second book, the novella, Destroy Me, from his perspective, we realize that he's not actually that bad, and we get to see into his brain a little bit, his upbringing, his like people he knows, the world a little bit more as well. So yeah, I gave that one a 4.25 stars. I really liked his perspective. Then we go into the next one, Unravel Me. I think this is the biggest book of the series at like nearly 500 pages, but it went so quick. I think I rated this one 4.5 stars. I really liked this one. This one is where Juliet and the guy that she ran away with find this underground rebel group. So they're staying underground with this group and they're trying to get a handle on her powers a little bit better. Like, she's trying to understand what they do, how she can control them. And a bunch of different characters are introduced in this book. You meet her best friend Kenji, and who else? Adam, which is the guy she ran away with, his brother James, and you meet Castle, Brendan, Winston, all of those people who are key characters for the rest of the series. So it starts to build the world a bit more. You understand what's happening more as well, because in the first book it's just Juliet's perspective and she's been locked away. She doesn't really know what's happening in the world. So you start to see a little bit more of the world, the re-establishment, what's happening, why the government has taken over, what they're trying to do. And yes, then we go into Ignite Me, which this one really starts to bud the romance between... Oh, hold on, before you go into that, there's another novella, Fracture Me. So this novella is from Adam's POV, and Adam and Juliet are dating at this point, but this one really made me hate Adam. And it was a good segue into the next book, because then you can really start shipping Juliet and Warner, because Adam is like trashed, in my opinion. I gave this one a 1.5 stars because I just really hated the character and everything about it was like giving me the ick low-key. But it was important, I think, to give you context going into the next full book of the series. So I recommend reading it still. I just really hated the character. So then we go into this one, and this one is really the start of Juliet and Warner's relationship. Warner has been taken into Omega Point, which is the underground rebel group, and they start talking. They figure out what Warner's superpower is because he's got one as well. Juliet's starting to get control of her powers. And then this is also one where there's a big war as well. So you see sort of the setup of the war, who like allies each other. And yeah, I gave this one a 4-star as well, I think. Pretty much it's like a flat 4-star series for me with some variants. The next book, Restore Me. This one is where the book starts to get really juicy. It follows Juliet, who is trying to run Sector 45, which is after the war. She thinks that she's killed one of the main guys, so she's taken over part of the world. It follows her through that, and then there's major plot twists, there's new characters, there's character development. I rated this one 4.25 stars. Loved that one. I think you read Shatter Me next. I forget which order the novellas go in, but pretty sure you read Shatter Me next. I rated this one 3.5. I really liked this one. Again, the novellas, I think you should read them because they give you context going into the main books. They give you different character perspectives. There's lots of like character insight, and they do add to the plot line a little bit. You don't have to read them, but I recommend it. And they're super short. Like, this is 2 novellas, so literally that thick-ish each. So super short, super easy to get through, and it does add a bit of context. But that was Shatter Me. Next we go into Defy Me, and this is where it gets super spicy. Juliet finds out her role in the whole world pretty much, and I really liked how this ended, because at the start I was a bit confused, like, how is this random 17-year-old girl the key to saving the world? Like, how does that make sense? But it starts to make a lot of sense, and you see where she's come from, who like her family is, who like the history, their childhoods. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but it's so good, and it makes you realize that her and Aaron Warner are literally fated soulmates. So yes, I gave this one 4.5. Then you go back to this book, which is the next novella, Reveal Me. I gave this one 3.5. That's pretty common for the novellas for me. They're good, but it's just a novella, so what can you do? I'm pretty sure this one was in Kenji's perspective, and actually I might have only rated this one a 3. I don't remember really, but I was surprised that I didn't love Kenji's perspective in the novella as much as I thought I would, because I love Kenji as a character. But I found him to be a little bit too like self-deprecating, but in a weird way. Like, it wasn't in a romanticized way, I suppose, which I suppose is good. It gives you insight into his brain. but it wasn't what I expected. But it does, now I'm torn because it does really get you to love his character more going into the next books though. So, I don't know. Why do I feel like I need to reread the series already? I'm sticking with my rating, 3 stars. It was good, and it starts to bud Kenji and Nazira's relationship. That one. And then the last book, well, the last full book of the series is Imagine Me. This might have been my favorite of the whole series, which is sad because I started to just really fall in love with all the characters and the setting and the plot line, and then it was over. So I rated this one 4.75. This one really is, honestly, I got up to this far and I didn't know how it was going to end, and I was like, am I sure there's not another book here? But it really wraps up nicely by the end, and I love it so much. I'm just remembering all the characters and everything that happens. This really starts to get you to fall in love with the characters. Like, the character development from the first to the last book is just elite. And characters, Aaron, Juliet, Kenji, Nazira, they're all just top notch. Chef's kiss. And it really plays with your head as well, because it starts to make you question your allegiances a little bit, which is strange because you know who the villains are. But by the end of the book, I was sort of feeling sorry for one of the main villains in the book, and I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen here? But it turns around and we hate him, so it's fine. That's that one. And then last novella of the series, Believe Me. This might have been my favorite book of the whole series, which I'm so surprised about. I rate it 4.75, and honestly, it could be a 5. So wholesome, and it really makes you love the characters, and it was such a good ending to the series. It's pretty much an extended epilogue, because, oh, Hazel's awake. Let's see how we go. This really ties up the plot line, and then this is just an extended epilogue of what happens after. Spoiler, Aaron and Juliet get married, and it's from Aaron's perspective, so amazing. Loved it. But that is each individual book rating. Overall, I've already said that, didn't I? 4-star series, yeah, said that. But overall, I love it, and I highly recommend anyone to read this series. Now that I'm talking about it again, I feel like I want to take it up to a 4.5-star series. Is that crazy? I just really, really liked it. And I was a bit confused how it was going to be such a long series, because like the overview that I'd heard was like, this girl, she can kill people when she touches them, the government's taking her, and I was like, okay, so the series is going to be about her escaping, and then that's it. But that all happens in the first book, and then the rest is just, I've done that like a million times, but that's what I feel about it, so that's what it is. A couple of notes on it is I feel like Adam and James are irrelevant characters, and I low-key wish that they weren't in it at all. That might be a little bit controversial, but I think it's true. They do add a fair bit to the plot line, especially in like some of these middle books. You'll find out why, but I also feel like that could be taken out and you wouldn't really miss any of the plot line or the characters. You don't really need them, especially towards the end. It's like, why are they even here? I think especially after I read Adam's novella, I was like, can we just discard of him? Like, we don't need him. But anyway, that might be a little bit harsh. Oh well. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, the writing style. A lot of people hate how the writing is, but I really loved it. Sorry, I have bells on my desk and I keep dingling them. Let me put them down. I actually really love the writing style, and I understand why people hate it, but I recommend, if you're not liking it, just keep going through the books because it changes a lot. In the first one, it's very like poetic, lyrical writing, lots of metaphors. Let me give you an example. I wish I could stuff my mouth full of raindrops and fill my pockets full of snow. I wish I could trace the veins in a fallen leaf and feel the wind pinch my nose, which is so beautiful, but also some people hate that in the series because it's the typical writing in a fictional novel. But I really liked it. Honestly, it was really pretty and it painted some really pretty pictures. And I noticed that that was pretty much only the first book that it was like that. And I have a theory that the writing is like that because that's how Juliet's brain is. She literally hadn't talked to anyone in nearly a year. All she'd done was write in a notebook and like look out a window. So I feel like it really gives you an insight into what Juliet's brain was like, and that's how she thought. So that's how the book was, because it was in her perspective. And then going into other characters' perspectives, it was completely different. The writing was like, if it was in Warner's perspective, it was very straightforward, the logical writing. Adam's perspective was just, well, we don't talk about that. Kenji's perspective was very like insightful, like you got to see how he thought. And then Juliet's character development, you can see it through the writing style, because by the end of the series, even in Juliet's perspective, it wasn't like that. It was really just like fierce, and I'll be back. Say hello. Say hello. Good girl. Oh, now I gotta toast it down. Whew, with a baby. Not easy. Okay, we made it. Alright. So, the other point I was going to make was Juliet's character development. Or even just the character development of all the characters. Really, honestly, Juliet and Warner, which are the two main characters, superb character development. At the start of the series, Juliet is portrayed as like really meek and like shy, and she doesn't want to talk to anyone. She's really emotional. I'm just gonna move back so you can see Hazel. She's so cute. She's like intrinsically think in metaphors and poetic lines, and she doesn't really know who she is because she's been locked up her whole life, and she's just looking for comfort from anyone really. By the end of the series, Juliet is so independent, out of her shell. She's fierce, she's strong, she's like confident, and she's sort of funny. So her character development is amazing. And also with Warner, at the start of the series, he's super like drawn into himself, like logical, like how would you say, militant, and he treats everyone sort of badly. By the end of the series, he's so lovely, and even though he's still got those core elements of who he is, like he's still sort of reserved and like withdrawn, you can really see that all the other characters have built some sort of friendship with him, and they are starting to understand him a little bit more. So it's super cute. I think that's pretty much all of my thoughts on the series. The only other thing I was going to say, oh yes, I was going to talk about the spiciness. So it does have, it does sweetness. There is some, but it's not too intense, and you can easily like skip it a little bit and it's fine. Like, but you don't even have to skip it. Like, I would be comfortable with Hazel reading this when she's like 15, because it's not too spicy. It's just sort of alludes to it. There's a little bit, but it's not in detail, so it's fine. Honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, the less I feel like there was. Like, there might have been 3 or 4 scenes in the whole series that were a bit spicy, and even then it didn't go into detail about anything. So I think it was fine. What do you think, honey? So that is our thoughts on the Shatter Me series. I also want to add that if you love like found family and really love characters, then this series is for you. Will you wave goodbye? Wave goodbye. We're gonna go have lunch, and we hope you have a good day. And if you're unsure about if you want to read the series or not, I highly recommend it, and I think you should just give it a shot. Do you think so too? Do you think so too? She's just interested in eating her fingers. So that's that from us. Have a good day and happy reading. Catch you later.